The first June edition of Matt Snyder's Major League Baseball Power Rankings are out, and there's a new number one on the board. The Yankees overtake the Phillies thanks in part to Juan Soto's late heroics in San Francisco over the weekend. New York went 21-7 in May and are carrying it over to this month. Let's bring in Matt Snyder as well as our Major League Baseball insider Jim Bowden for these power rankings. And of course, Jim will agree, disagree, also deliver some team news, which a couple of these teams will be apropos. Matt, let's start with the Yankees. They have been balling out. Soto and Judge leading the way. Take me through the thought process of putting them over a very good Phillies team.
Yeah, well, they have the best record in baseball, the best run differential in baseball, and they've done this without Garrett Cole. The Cy Young winner last year, been one of the best workhorses in baseball for several years now. And heading into the year when he went down with that elbow injury, I remembered saying I thought he might have been one of the most, if not the most valuable players in baseball to his team because that rotation could not afford to lose him. Well, look at this. The rotation has completely stepped up in his absence. Luis Gil has been unbelievable. Marcus Stroman, Carlos Rodon doing their jobs. Clark Schmidt's been great. Now he's hurt, but they're only going to have to patchwork that spot in the rotation for probably a couple weeks until Cole gets back because he's starting that rehab assignment Tuesday. But it's not just the rotation. The back end of the bullpen's been great. Obviously, Clay Holmes. But let's give some props to Luke Weaver. He's been unbelievable. He's been a revelation. And then if you look at the offense, obviously you've got the Anthony Volpe breakout season ahead of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, who might be headed for a first and second finish in MVP voting, whatever order they'll be. It's just an unbelievable baseball team right now.
Yeah, it certainly is, Matt, and I think you absolutely nailed your power rankings as you usually do. But I have the top 5 teams exactly how you have it, with Yankees on top. And how about the fact that it was announced today that Aaron Judge was named American League Player of the Month after hitting .371 with 14 homers? And how about the fact that Mr. Luis Gil was named the Pitcher and Rookie of the Month of May for the New York Yankees after going 6-0 with a 0.7 ERA. What a month for both of those guys. And as you mentioned, great news on Tuesday that Garrett Cole will throw 55 pitches in his rehab start. So he'll be back in that rotation sooner rather than later. Now, I talked to the front office of the New York Yankees. I asked them what they'll be looking for at the trade deadline, because remember, the trade deadline's only 57 days away now. And what I was told is they are going to watch closely the right side of that infield and see if they can't get more production between now and the deadline. But that's the one area of the team they're a little bit concerned about. Anthony Rizzo at first base has a negative WAR. Gleyber Torres, the second baseman, hitting just .230 with 4 home runs. So they'll be checking the trade market. They'll be monitoring their progress. But that's the only area of the Yankees that they're worried about right now.
I want to keep it here with the Yankees, and I want to follow up with Soto and Judge, but I want to ask you guys 2 different questions about these 2 guys. Matt, I'll start with you. You brought up potentially 1 and 2 in the betting space, as well as at the end of the ballot box here. Just if you had your druthers right now, as we sit in early June here, who's been more impressive and would be your bet? Would it be Soto or Judge?
Oh, man. I mean, it was even like a couple weeks ago, it was easily Soto, but Judge is now like leading the American League in OPS in home runs. I don't know, man. I guess I'll go Soto because it's a new environment and how quickly he adjusted that environment. And I feel like the lineup around him has kind of adapted to his style of working pitchers to death, taking pitches, but fighting off pitches in the zone. I think what he's done for that offense, I'm going to go with Soto, but man, it's so close, as you could see from my laughter there.
And they're basically tied for being the betting favorites at just around 2-1 at FanDuel. Jim, my question to you about these 2 is what has impressed you the most about Soto's addition to this lineup and how it's really been benefiting both sluggers?
Yeah, what really, to me, the biggest issue has been the Yankees last year were 23rd out of the 30 teams in on-base percentage, and now they've been either first or second this whole year. And he's completely changed the mentality of the lineup. They work the counts up and down the lineup. But it's not just Soto. Obviously, bringing in left fielder Alex Verdugo has been a big plus as well. The development of shortstop Anthony Volpe. But I think Volpe's development has a lot to do with him watching Soto prepare, watching Soto work counts, watching Soto use the whole field. So I think Soto has brought a mindset that's really helped this lineup. But I will tell you, between the 2 players right now, Aaron Judge is the MVP of the American League over Soto.
All right, let's stay in the division. Talk about the Blue Jays. You do get inside that right around that top 20 slot there. Matt, what's to like about Toronto right now?
Well, I mean, they just got hot in this last week. They've won 5 of the last 6 games. They've got talent in-house. We've seen this team. They've made the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years. They won 91 games in the year they did not make the playoffs. It's still a very flawed team, but it's not really that hard to jump up in the rankings when you get from the early 20s to the late teens there, because none of these teams are reliably good at all. It's going to be interesting to see how things proceed from here, because we started to hear whispers of maybe Bo Bichette and or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. getting traded this July if the Blue Jays continued on their current path. But Ross Atkins yesterday on Sirius Radio said that, I believe it was Jim's show, actually, so I'll let him talk about that. But basically, they would rather extend them than trade them, but I will let Jim take over there.
Yeah, so we had Ross Atkins on the show yesterday, and I started by asking him if he was going to fire his manager, John Schneider, because they're in last place, 2 games under 500. They have the pitching and defense. They should have a much better record. He said he was not going to fire the manager. In fact, he said he's done an incredible job and said he's part of the solution, not part of the problem. Then I asked him about Guerrero and Bichette. For those that don't know, both of them are free agents after the 2025 season. So this is a last place team with 2 players that they've not extended. And the later it goes, the harder it's going to be to extend them. So I asked them, if you don't have them extended by the trade deadline, will you trade them? And look, Ross was very clear. He says, we don't think it makes any sense at all to trade them. We're going to continue to work and sign them both long term. That's what they're working on now. I've also asked the Blue Jays about what they're looking for at the trade deadline. They made that very clear. They're looking for bats. They're looking for offense, specifically left field, third base, second base, or DH. But that's what they're going to focus on between now and the deadline. They're not going to sell. They're going to buy. They're going to go for it. The manager is safe. Guerrero is safe. Bichette is safe. And everything is good in Toronto except the record and where they stand.
Jim, appreciate the latest. Jim's been talking to all 30 front offices as we're just inside of 2 months from the trade deadline. All right, so we showed you 11 through 20, which the Blue Jays came in at number 19. If we get now to 21 to 30, we're going to see the Chicago Cubs, Matt Snyder's Chicago Cubs there. What's going on with Chicago as they're looking up at Milwaukee in the standings, Matt?
Well, first of all, you didn't have to slap my name on with theirs. That really hurts my feelings right now because they're so bad right now. 5-14 since Mother's Day. By the way, you could argue on Mother's Day they didn't deserve that to win that game either. But 5-14 since then. 4 of those wins were totally funky. A couple walk-offs in there. You could argue that they should have been 1-18 in their last 19 games. They've been so bad. Totally inconsistent offense. Awful bullpen, even with Craig Counsell seemingly pulling the right strings a lot of the times. For a while, even like just a week ago, you could say, oh, they're right within striking range, but now they're 7.5 out in the NL Central. They are still obviously within striking range of that last National League wild card. And the silver lining here is last year in June, that's when they turned it around and started to play good baseball. So in the clubhouse, I'm sure that they could rally around that message and say, hey, this is right around the time last year that we started to turn things around. They do have enough talent to turn it around, but with such an inconsistent offense and with such a bad bullpen right now, it's tough sledding. The rotation can only do so much heavy lifting.
Yeah, and Matt, there's 2 areas the Cubs are going to work on at the trade deadline between now and then. Number 1, they really want to upgrade their catching situation. They're really concerned because they're not getting any offensive production whatsoever. Yan Gomes is hitting 154, Miguel Amaya hitting 186. Don't be surprised if you hear the name Elias Diaz of the Colorado Rockies as a player they are possibly targeting in a trade. Remember, he was an All-Star last year. In fact, he was the MVP of the All-Star game last year in Seattle, so watch that. The other thing, as Matt mentioned, and he's absolutely right, this bullpen has been atrocious. They are 26. I said 26 in ERA in Major League Baseball, the bullpen. Look at this graphic right now, 4.45 ERA. Look at this whip, 25th. Home runs allowed, 23rd. Save percentage, 26th. That's not going to get you to the postseason. So the front office with Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins, they know what to do between now and the deadline. They need catching help. They need bullpen help. And the only way they're going to get it is through trade. They're on the clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock.
And let's end with the Mets, and let's just flip the turn here. Let's have Jim go first because we know that the Mets have been struggling. There's been talks about a fire sale. So we'll have Jim go first on what he's hearing, and then Matt here with the Metropolitans at 25.
Well, if you remember, I got criticized at the end of spring training when I called them the mediocre Mets because for some reason at that time Mets fans thought that they were going to make the playoffs. Well, now I can call them the morbid Mets and they'll all get mad at me. But look, they're going nowhere and they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline, right? Yeah, they're in the same conversation with the White Sox. That's right. And the Athletics. That's right. And the Rockies. That's right. That's how bad this team is. So let me tell you what's going to happen. They're going to trade Pete Alonso, okay? They may deny it all they want, but they're going to try to trade him. They're going to try to get a solid return, and then they'll try to re-sign him in the offseason as a free agent. Now, Alonso hitting .239 on the year, 13 homers, 30 RBIs, a 128 plus OPS, and there are a lot of teams that he could help. The Seattle Mariners really could use his bat in the middle of their lineup. The Houston Astros, can you imagine putting him between Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker? Oh my, oh my. And what about the Yankees? Would they ever trade him cross town? I doubt it, but that would be a good upgrade at first base for them. The other guy to watch with the New York Mets that they could trade is Luis Severino. They signed him to a one-year deal in the offseason. He has been brilliant on the mound. He's made 11 starts with an ERA of 3.52, a FIP of 3.92. Love what I've seen on the mound with him. And with so many teams looking for starting pitchers, there's just not a lot on the trade market besides Jesus Luzardo with the Miami Marlins. So Severino is a guy that a lot of contending teams are going to come after. But the one thing's for sure, when it gets to the deadline, the Mets are going to go, Mortimer, sell, sell, sell.
I love that. I love that trading places reference there. That boy. It's funny. We talk about anytime something goes weird with the Yankees and they say the Bronx Zoo. Well, this is the Queens Zoo, right? I mean, you've got an owner deleting a tweet in the middle of May that basically says they're going to sell, and then he tries to walk it back and says, no. We might not. I'm not saying that. Edwin Diaz. Obviously, last year was a disaster after he tore up his knee in the WBC, and before the season even started, it seems like the Mets were behind the 8 ball. But this season, he started off pretty good and then completely melted down. But now that he's hurt, they're still having bullpen meltdowns like they did on Sunday. Remember when they won 12 out of 15? They started 0-5, then they won 12 out of 15 against good teams. And it looked like, oh, maybe they're just going to be, as Jim said, the mediocre Mets. No, they're bad. Since May 7th, when they were 18-18, they're 6-17 since then. So as you see, those are exactly the guys that I was going to mention that are going to be on the trading block. It's going to be a little bit of a slow play, I think, from David Stearns here. He was taken over to kind of build them the foundation as he did with the Brewers. So you have a lot of guys coming off the assembly line from the farm system, except now with the Mets, they have deep pockets. I think they're probably trying to recreate, at least Cohen wants to recreate the Dodgers model, which is they hired Andrew Friedman from the Rays, run us like the Rays, except spend a ton of money. I think that's what he wants David Stearns to do. It'll be interesting to see the execution here, but for now, they're going to be bad.
Matt, Jim, thank you as always after that 1-week holiday hiatus. Great to have both of you guys back at our normal slot, and check out Matt's power rankings in its entirety at CBSSports.com. All right, digest these notable games tonight, but I got to tell you, mark your calendars, put a reminder in your phone. Wednesday, Paul Skeens against that Dodger lineup at PNC Park.